Well, hi everyone. I'm back. I'm back from Italy and I am so glad to be with you. And I'm excited to talk with you about some lessons I've learned, ways I've grown, and I want to hear from you. But our topic today is fear getting the best of you? So I have lost, as I shared in Facebook yesterday and Instagram when I just popped on really quickly. I have lost so much of opportunities in my life because of fear of failure, fear of not getting it right, fear of not being enough, fear of disappointing someone, fear of not being able to do it right. I have given up so many opportunities because of fear. And so this time, I want to share with you, how do you not let fear get the best of you? But let me preface this by saying the way and the reason and the ability to get to Italy by myself, getting on a train, getting on a plane, doing all the public transportation, getting on the subway, getting on the Italian train stations, using all the apps, all of those kind of things I would have never done in a million years 10 or 20 years ago. I just wouldn't have had the confidence to do it. And so the question for you today is fear getting the best of you? Are you losing juicy opportunities to live your best life, not just in going places like Italy, but I didn't go for my PhD back when I was 22 years old because after I finished my master's degree, I told myself I couldn't do it. I was too scared to take a chance and write a dissertation because I might not do it right. I might fail. And so I never tried. How many of you could raise your hand and say, I have stopped myself from growing or doing things because I'm afraid I couldn't do it well. I couldn't do it perfectly. I couldn't do it right. I might disappoint someone. Someone might be mad at me. All these things keep us small and stuck. And so I want to share with you that how I've gotten through my fear. And Italy is the great story of that because I was by myself. My sister, we're both in our older years. We don't know technology, and it was a little scary. That's so when we don't let fear get the best of us, I just want to say one thing. Welcome, Instagram friends. I'm so glad to see you. Yeah, welcome, Cindy and Kathy, and so glad to see you, Becky and Amy, and the rest of you have some other names. And so seeing you in Facebook Live, and Tamara, good to see you, and Janice, Danielle, some of my friends that I see often, GM, God still speaks. Yes, it's true. It wasn't that I didn't feel nervous. And it wasn't that we didn't have any challenges. Our first plane was delayed by 6 hours. We missed our trains, all the things that happen, right? But here's the deal. You're going to feel fear. That's just human. You're not sinning when you feel fear. Did you know that the Bible speaks more about fear than anything else? There's 365 times that the Bible says, do not be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Because we are going to feel afraid. We're human beings. And sometimes our fear is legit. We're in danger. And our fear is meant to warn us we're in danger so that we can get out of there. We can fight or flight and do what we need to do. But a lot of times our fear is up here in what might happen. What might happen. It's not happening, but what might happen if I travel to Italy and I can't find my way, or I lose my tickets, or my passport gets stolen, or, what happens if I get sick when I'm in Italy? I've just had some health challenges and I was a little bit worried about that, or what happened? And so we have these imaginary fears. I shared yesterday that my first pregnancy, I entirely ruined. I've only had one pregnancy and I wrecked it because I feared what might happen. I might have a miscarriage, then I might have, a premature birth, and then I might have a stillbirth, and, on and on and on and on, all of the things that might happen. My son is 45 years old. He's never broken a bone. He's never sprained an ankle. He's never been in the hospital. But of course, I imagined all those things might happen, and I lived in fear. And so I have learned to move beyond fear. Not that I don't feel it. I just know how to manage it. And so what are you most scared of? What keeps you stuck? I am so grateful I got this opportunity at my age to go to Italy with my sister. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do those kind of things. So when you are the same age group as your 95-year-old dad, we're both old. I visited him as well. I'm thinking he doesn't have the capacity. He doesn't have the physical capacity to travel like I did. And I was so grateful that I had the not only physical capacity to do it, but the emotional, mental resilience and strength. Not that I didn't feel scared at all about things. I did feel a little nervous about stuff. But what I've learned is I can handle it. I can do it. I've gained the confidence to know how to handle my fear and not let it be the boogeyman of my life. And so, what is it that you're most scared of? What is it that you're most scared of? What keeps you from living your best life relationally, career-wise, being the best mom you want to be or the best woman you want to be? What is your biggest fear that keeps you stuck in insecurity, bound in not enough syndrome? We're going to be doing a whole week of coaching for you. A whole week, Monday through Friday, of live coaching on Zoom, not on Instagram, not on Facebook. It's going to be on Zoom. So you can actually talk to us, talk to our coaches. I'm going to have 3 coaches with you all week long. My best coaches are going to be with you every single day for 1 hour this week of June 23rd to 27th. And you have to sign up to be a part of this. But if you want to really learn to move beyond this fear that keeps you feeling stuck and afraid and insecure, then sign up. We want you to sign up. I'll put the link up there in just a minute. But join our coaching week because we want you to be a part of it. And for those of you who are Instagram who can't maybe see the feed the same way, and Facebook, it's leslievernick.com/challenge, leslievernick.com/challenge. And there is a small fee for you to be a part of it. And the reason we charged $17 for the whole week, not for each day, for an hour of live coaching around this issue for every single day that week, is we want you to show up. We want you to have some skin in the game. And we don't want to have 3,000 people sign up and we don't know how many people are going to actually show up. When we have some skin in the game, we're a little bit more clear about how many people might actually show up. We did this last year and we had life-changing results, because our insecurity comes from fear that I'm going to fail, fear that I'm not enough, fear that I won't do it right, fear that someone will be mad at me. And so we live in a shell of who we should be because we've let fear get the best of us. And so what do you think God has to say about this? Lily is asking, can we all come online, our faces to appear and chat in Zoom? In the Zoom room, we won't have that many people that we can't have all your faces online. It might be several different screens, but we will have your faces online in the Zoom room. We did last year. We had about, 200 women show up every day. It was amazing. It was a really amazing experience. And so if you're thinking about, hey, I'm going to tackle this fear of insecurity, of not being enough, which permeates so much of our life, from career to mothering to not being the kind of woman that you want to be, the kind of wife you want to be, the kind of friend you want to be, because you live afraid. You live afraid of rejection. You live afraid of making someone unhappy. You live afraid of saying the wrong thing. You live afraid of not knowing what to do. And so you do nothing. Are you happy with the way that you're living your life right now? Or is it time to make a change? So what are some of your worst fears? What are some of your worst fears? What keeps you most stuck? I fear being disappointed. I fear being disappointed. Yeah. Yesterday we talked about this, and I fear being not loved. I fear not being loved. What else do you fear? What do you fear? Yeah, a lot of people are putting some great verses in the Bible, from the Bible, on fear. God speaks. Here's some that I love. I use Psalm 23 quite a bit in my life. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I don't need anything. He's given me everything I need, even if I don't like it, right? Even if I don't like it. So when I'm missing my train schedule, I don't like it, but maybe that's what I need to learn patience, to learn to be more creative in the way that I figure out what to do, right? So that there's everything that I need that God gives me. God. And so he says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? For thou art with me. Thou art with me. And that verse has been a real comfort in health challenges. If you're facing any health challenges, obviously you always think about what could this be? What could this be? Could this be serious? And if it is, what does that mean? And then the fear monster starts revving up. Well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Perfect love casts out fear. It's not the perfect love of another fallible human being, ladies. Your husband can never love you enough that you don't feel any fear. Your mother cannot love you enough that you don't ever feel any fear. And God loves you and you will still feel fear. But you trust that the God of the universe is with you. I will fear no evil because he is with me. God has not given us a spirit of fear. That's another verse in the Bible in 2 Timothy 1:7. And so if you're feeling afraid, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? So what are the things that fear keeps you stuck in? Put it in the chat. I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear what fear does to you. How does it limit you? How is fear limiting you right now? What would you do if you didn't feel afraid? Yeah, what would you do differently if you didn't feel afraid? Yeah, technology and social media is is fearful. I think it's if you don't know it. But what happens? I mean, you're not going to blow up your computer. I know I feel sometimes like I might if I touch the wrong button, but you're just going to make a mistake. You're just going to make a mistake. And what does making a mistake mean to you? You see, a lot of the things that we tell ourselves, and we're going to go into a lot of detail in our coaching week. And let me put that link up there right now so that you have it. But in our coaching week, we're going to talk a lot about the thoughts that we have about our fears. Because let me just put this up. I can't talk and put my buttons up at the same time. So if you fear, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? So if I'm afraid of rejection, right? If I'm afraid of rejection, if I speak up and tell my friend that I'm a Republican and they throw me out of a room, or I'm a Democrat and they throw me out of the room, or whatever it is, that I believe in tongues or I don't believe in tongues, whatever it is, we can't have honest conversations anymore, right? Because if you don't believe like I do, you're the bad guy. And we fear rejection. We fear criticism. We fear. And so we tell ourselves, I can't handle it. But what if you could? What if you could? I mean, Jesus was the most worthy of love person in this entire creation. And yet not everybody loved him. Not everybody thought well of him. Not everybody wanted to be around him. What if you could handle that? What if you could handle someone not liking you? Because it's true, not everyone's going to like you, especially if you're your authentic, true self. Can you live with that? Can you deal with that? What if you could? What would be different about you if you weren't living afraid of what people would think? I would love to hear some answers to that. What would be different about you if you weren't living afraid of what your neighbors think, of what your family thinks, of what your husband thinks? I'm not saying you don't care about what they think, but what if you didn't live afraid of what they think? How would you be different? What might you do differently? Might you say differently? I would love to hear how you might be different. How might you be different? Instagram, I'd love to hear from you too. Yeah. I try and learn new things. My fear keeps me from looking for a promotion, learning an instrument, or speaking my mind. Yes, yes. My fear of not doing it right kept me from painting. For years and years and years, I'd start a painting and I'd say, oh, I can't do it. See, I can't do it. It looks ugly. I've learned that every picture has an ugly face. This one is not in its ugly phase. It's kind of beyond the ugly phase, but it had an ugly phase. Right? Her face is coming into being. I haven't done her hair yet, but it's coming. It's not done, but it's past the ugly phase. I've learned that I can get past the ugly phase. Tamara says, I would enjoy life if I didn't live so fear. I am physically exhausted from cleaning houses because I fear depriving my family by going back to school and failing. Yeah, I had lead poisoning and I'm recovering. And so what might be possible for you if your going back to school didn't deprive them, but enrich them because you were a happier mom and because they got to learn some of the things that you were learning at school and because maybe they learned more responsibility for picking up some of the slack in the house instead of you doing it at all. Maybe it'd be a win-win for both of you. But we're so afraid of upsetting the apple cart when maybe the apple cart is got rotten apples in it and it could use some upsetting sometimes. Lisa says, I could show up as my authentic self. And Lisa, what stops you from showing up as your authentic self? And what are you so afraid of being your authentic self? You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. This is a analogy, and I think it's true for most women. Maybe some of the younger generation don't do this, but I've got granddaughters and I see them. They're 13, 14, and 15, and they're doing it. They're doing it. And so I'm going to describe this metaphor. I would feel free and not restricted. Yes. Don't you want that? Don't you want to feel free and restricted and unrestricted? And you're restricted by your own conscience, by your own values of what's right and what's wrong, but not by the fear of what other people say is right and wrong. Right? Isn't that freeing to be able to have your own values and your own moral compass and your own standards under God, if you're a Christian for sure, but that you're not having to live under someone else's standards? So here's the analogy I want to share with you that I see my granddaughters falling into, that young women do. And this keeps you from being your best self, fear. And so if we were to pick a flavor of ice cream, and I've done this before, so those of you who've heard this before, bear with me. If you were to pick a flavor of ice cream, if you were to go to the ice cream parlor today with me, and we were to pick ice cream, and I had the best ice cream in Italy, gelato, and I actually got 2 scoops. I never get 2 scoops of ice cream, but there were 2 flavors that I really wanted. Caramel sea salt and dark chocolate gelato. And they were to die for it. I got them every day while I was in Assisi. They were so good. Anyway, if you were to pick a flavor of ice cream, those would be my flavors. If I could pick those every day, I would. What would be your flavors of ice cream that you would pick? And put it in the chat if you want to. Put it in the chat. I would love to hear your flavor of ice cream. Yeah. Lisa says, I would live empowered if I wasn't living afraid. I'm so glad that you would live empowered. So let's just talk about what hangs us up. So you pick your ice cream, chocolate, strawberry, pineapple, pralines and cream. Oh, look at this. We're all different, aren't we? We don't have the same taste buds. We don't all like the same ice cream. Snickerdoodle, vanilla. Somebody actually likes plain old vanilla, cookies and cream. We're all different. And you're not afraid to say, this is what I like. This is what I want. Cherry ice cream, strawberry ice cream, vanilla ice cream, chocolate ice cream. And I don't want peanut butter ice cream. I don't want orange sherbet. I don't want mint chocolate chip. Sarah likes mint chocolate chip, but that's not what I would pick. Sammy would pick black cherry. Okay, so now go with me with this metaphor. So we as women, picture yourself. You're all standing together in a crowd, like the ice cream store. And some hot guy walks in and he picks Rocky Road. And you're like, oh, what's wrong with me? Oh, I should be Rocky Road then. Maybe I need to be more Rocky. And so we start morphing into what we think other people want us to be in order to be liked. But that's not who we are. We're not Rocky Road. We're vanilla. And now we start to feel insecure as vanilla. What's wrong with me? I'm not Rocky Road. He wants Rocky Road and I'm not. I'm just plain old vanilla. I don't want to be vanilla anymore. I want to be Rocky Road. And so we start to pretend we're something we're not in order for people to like us. And this breeds more and more insecurity because when people like us, when we try to be Rocky Road, we know we're not Rocky Road. And it's exhausting trying to be Rocky Road because that's not how God wired us. And it creates all this insecurity and fear. What if you just said, I'm vanilla or I'm mint chocolate chip, and I'm going to wait for someone who really likes mint chocolate chip because that's who I am? Don't you think those relationships would be much more healthy and satisfying if someone really was into who you are instead of who you're pretending to be or trying to be in order for them to like you? Ladies, it's exhausting. And fear is getting the best of you and your relationships. So what might you need to do to figure out who you are? To stop letting the fear of rejection or someone not liking you. Jesus was fully Jesus, and some people didn't like him. That didn't make him wrong or bad or unlovable. And yesterday when I was on, I heard so many women say, I'm afraid that if they don't like me, that means I'm unlovable. That's not true. That's not true. It's a fear boogie in your head, a fear monster that's telling you something that's not true. And fear will get the best of you. And it won't just rob you of opportunities like, oh, I want to paint, or, oh, I want to go to Italy, or, oh, I want to go to college someday. It's not going to just rob you of your opportunities, ladies. It's going to rob you of yourself. When Jesus tells us that in order to become ourself, we have to die to ourself, what is he talking about here? He's talking about unless a seed goes into the ground and dies, it cannot burst open and become, because God didn't make you to be just a seed. You were a seed in your mother's womb, but then you grew, and you grew differently. Some of you have blonde hair, some of you have dark hair, some of you have white skin, some of you have dark skin, some of you have round eyes, some of you have slantier eyes. God created you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, just like the ice cream maker makes different flavors of ice cream. And inside of you, he has put inside gifts and talents and abilities and natures like introvert and extrovert in order for him to use you, just like he's made seeds that make watermelons and oak trees and roses and sunflowers. We're not all the same. And your job in this life is to, as you yield to God, and as you grow into who you're supposed to be, stop looking around and saying, well, why aren't I looking like the rose bush when I'm just a sunflower? You're supposed to be the sunflower, so be the best, brightest sunflower you can be. And if someone doesn't like sunflowers, let them. Don't try to marry them. And don't be best friends with them because they don't like sunflowers. And you're going to exhaust yourself trying to be the rose that they like. That's not what God's asking you to do, even in marriage, to be what someone else wants you to be. You are called to be what God calls you to be. So who is that? Thank you, Andrea. Andrea is saying, I love this analogy. And being divorced twice, this information is so necessary to get deep inside of us. And so I invite you, this is so true. I invite you to attend our week-long coaching, Moving Beyond Insecurity. Each week, we're going to tackle something about what keeps you stuck in fear. Fear of failure, shame, fear of rejection. How do I begin to silence those negative voices in my head that tell me I'm not enough, I can't do it, something's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you other than you're a human being and that you're designed to grow into who God designed you to be. And we're not all the same, just like not every ice cream is the same. But believe it or not, someone actually likes some of the ice creams you don't like. They actually do. I've been in an ice cream parlor where I've watched what people pick because of this metaphor. And I see the craziest picks and I'm thinking, how could you pick bubblegum ice cream? Ugh! I would never in a million years eat bubblegum ice cream. And yet someone got 2 scoops of it. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's interesting. or certain flowers that I would never desire to have in my home. And some people have beautiful bouquets of those flowers. Your job is to grow into the person, the woman God made you to be. So how does fear keep you stuck? And what might be possible if you could feel your fear and know it's not the boogeyman of your life? That you could feel your fear and know that God is with you. That you could feel a little anxiety when you're trying a new juicy thing, going to college or whatever, you're painting a picture, and you could say, you know what? I can make a mistake. It's not the worst thing in the world. I can learn from my mistakes. I don't have to let my mistakes define me that I can't do it. So what might be possible? Put it in the chat. What might be possible if fear didn't get the best of you? If your insecurity about who you are, I'm not enough. Vanilla ice cream is not enough. It's not as good as chocolate. That's what you're telling yourself. And some people like vanilla ice cream. And so, believe it or not, some people do not like chocolate. My granddaughters do not like chocolate much at all. They would rather have a gummy bear than an M&M. Can you believe it? Not me. Not me. I would rather have an M&M than a gummy bear, and I'd rather have something else than an M&M. But it's got to be some sort of chocolate. We're not all the same. So if your husband criticizes you or shames you that you're not what he wants, one of the saddest counseling moments I had in my counseling profession was when a man was telling his wife that he wanted to leave her. And she was begging him not to. And she was saying something like, what can I do? What can I change? I'll get a boob job. I'll lose weight. I'll be whatever you want me to be. Just don't leave. What does that say about her insecurity? That I can't make it without you? That I need, with a big old capital NEED, you to stay in order for me to be okay? That might be what she meant in that moment, but that's a sad place for her. And maybe God is even allowing this for her to recognize that so that she can begin to say, wait a minute, he's not my God. God is my God. And I'm dependent on him for my value and my worth and my very identity. And that's idolatry. There's nothing wrong with having a good man in your life or even a hard man in your life, but he doesn't get to define you or control you unless you let them. And why would you? Because you're afraid. Because fear is getting the best of you. So what would be, Tamara says, just allowing people to be who they were meant to be. What would be possible? Allow others to be who they want to be. Allow others to be who they want to be, right? How many of you are trying to change your husband? What if you just let him be who he wants to be and see who that is and see what that means instead of trying to change him into who you want him to be? Jana says, I could start again in my life without the fear of mistakes. Wouldn't that be freeing? If you could see a mistake, we're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. I'm over 70 and I still make mistakes. Believe it or not, I'm not perfect. And I make mistakes. And how I see my mistakes is, oh my gosh, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? How can I do this better? When I make a painting mistake, oops, what do I do differently? Or sometimes the mistakes are the best thing that happened because it changed it. And it's like, oh, I actually like this now. Mistakes aren't always bad. Let yourself make them and grow from them, learn from them. And sometimes mistakes are happy accidents that take your life in a different direction that you would have never gone had you not made that mistake. Instead of letting mistakes be a statement of, you're not enough, you're a failure, you're bad. That's not what mistakes are. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. Even athletes who are really good at something still strike out, still miss the basket, still fall down in the Olympics. We are all going to make mistakes. Let yourself, without shame and self-hatred and a definition of, oh, this means I can't do it. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that at all. I could stop feeling I don't have a right to exist. Jana, I'm so sorry you feel that way. You were created by God to exist, but not just exist, to grow, to thrive, to be an amazing human being, to write part of God's story. All of the human beings in the Bible were just like us. It says Elijah was a man just like us. His story is in the Bible, but how's your story going to show up in God's history? You lived small and afraid. You buried your treasure because you lived afraid. Remember the story of the talents and the servant who buried his treasure because he was afraid? Jesus says, why did you do that? I would rather you have lost the money trying than live afraid. Ladies, if you're in that place of living afraid and you don't want to anymore, you're ready to change, I'm going to invite you to not a free, but a low cost, $17 for 5 hours of 3 of my coaches' time. So that's a lot of money that you would have to pay if you hired my coaches. If you hired them to coach you, they're going to be, all 3 of them are going to be there every day for an hour for Monday through Friday. And some people have asked the times. You can find the times when you go to leslievernick.com/challenge to sign up. But I think they're going to be 3 days of noon Eastern time and 2 days of 7:30 or 7 or 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So that if you are working during the day, you'll get replays of the coaching sessions, but show up live, because that's where you're going to get a chance. Here you ask the question and I answer it, or the coach answers it, but we don't see you. We don't have a chance to ask you back. Like, all right, so now you heard this. What does that mean for you? In a Zoom call, we can do that. We can actually do live coaching. And that's what they're going to do. And they're going to be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for an hour every single day. Last year, we actually came early so that we answered questions and stayed late so we answered questions. And we do the coaching for that hour. If you're living in fear and you are letting insecurity get the best of you, so that you're living small and you are not growing into the woman that God designed you to be. Perhaps you've morphed yourself into someone your husband wants you to be, or your kids want you to be. But maybe right now you have no idea who God's calling you to be. But you know you feel afraid. You feel insecure. You're living small. You're living in shame land. You're living in mistake land, fear of mistakes. You're living in fear of making someone upset with you or fear of rejection. That's not how God wants you to live. He wants you to live free. He wants you to live whole. You shall know the truth, and the truth what? Will set you free. And so I would highly encourage you to invest in yourself for $17, and you will get thousands of dollars of help. I promise you, you will get a lot of help if you show up and you apply what we're teaching you. Of course, you can't just learn by learning and hearing. How many of you have gone to church for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? And you still don't fully believe that God loves you, because information truth isn't the same as transformation truth. One of the phrases my counselor used to say the most to me is, yeah, Leslie, I know that here. I just don't know that here. Well, God wants you to make that long journey from head to heart. And we want to help you specifically, individually, one-on-one on these Zoom coaching calls. The week of June 23rd through 27th, Monday through Friday, 1 hour every day, live, not teaching. You'll get a little email that gives you the topic that you can read ahead of time. The teaching is the application in the coaching. We are going to help you figure out what keeps you stuck, not giving you more information, but helping you make that transformation. In coaching, people help you change, helping you make different. Let me just stop my phone from ringing. Okay, so we help you make that change, and we want you to. $17 is a very small investment. If you hired a coach for one coaching session, it would be well over $100 for one coaching session. $17 gives you 5 1-hour coaching sessions, plus information via email that you can read to learn from, plus short little videos from the coaches on those emails. You will get far more than you invest. Plus, you have to invest your time and your energy. But we want to give this to you, and we want you to give it to yourself. So sign up today. We would love to mentor you through this sphere so that you can be your best self. So what I'd like to do right now is ask you, what is your key takeaway from today? And then I'm going to answer some questions. I'm going to go to my question tracker. But as I'm doing that, what is your key takeaway for yourself for this session? What is it that God's saying to you? So information, application. What is God saying to you of all the things that I've said to you right now? What is God saying to you that you need to take away for today, that you need to actually put into practice? And maybe it's as simple as sign up for the coaching class. I don't know. But what is God saying to you about how fear has gotten the best of you? And what small next step can you take today to begin to change that? We're not changing our life in a day, but we change our life one step at a time. What's one step? What's your key takeaway from what I've shared with you today about how fear can get the best of you and what you want to do differently? What's your one takeaway? Zelina says, I don't have to be what a man wants me to be. They don't define me. God defines who I am. He made you, right? So if I'm going to create something, if I'm going to bake a cake, I get to decide what this cake is going to look like and what this cake is going to compose of. God decides for you who you're going to be. And even the capacity he wants you to serve him. He gives you the gifts and the talents. Michelangelo in Italy, he carved the David out of marble, an amazing figure. And he doesn't give everybody those gifts and talents, or musicians or artists or people who can write or people who can mother really well or people who can stand up for causes in the injustice category. These are gifts that God gives and drives you to causes he wants you to fight for and do. Kristen says, deal with what is, not what could be. That's her takeaway. Yeah. Apply small basic steps to work toward my goal. And it's okay if I don't get it all done in a day. Daily steps toward it without fear of the outcome. Kristen, you just said something gold when I want to capitalize a little bit for our audience. I have learned that my job is to do the work. I can't control the outcome. I'm going to make this really simple. My job is to get in the car, put my seatbelt on, drive safely to the store. I can't control the traffic. I can't control the other drivers. All I can control is my side of the street. I can get my paints ready. I can learn a paint class. I can sketch the art and I can do the best I can, but I can't control every single outcome. And when we try to control all the outcome, especially other people, we are going to drive ourselves crazy. And so do what you can control. And the most of that work is internal, right? Most of that work is internal. I can't control the traffic. I can't control how you think. I can't control what you do. All I can control is how I think and what I do and how I see myself and whether I trust God in the moment or not trust God in the moment, whether I believe God in the moment or not believe God. I can't control all these other things. And so when we live in a world that's pretty scary on the outside, and if we believe we have to control all that and manage all that, or we have to get every outcome to be perfect and exactly the way we want it to be, we're going to live like a wreck. And that isn't how God wants us to live. Lee Singh says, don't overthink it. Just do it. Just sign up, she says. Okay, so that's your takeaway. Great. Holly says, God alone defines me, and I can continue to move forward and do hard things, even if they are scary, because I am not alone. He is with me, and I trust him with the outcome. And I think that's one of the things I learned with my biggest health challenge this year that I've ever had. So for those of you who didn't know, I had pneumonia last year after a conference that I did, and I was really, really sick. And out of the pneumonia, some blood tests came back that were really, really wonky. And so there was some fear that I had a more serious problem. And I did have another problem, but it wasn't as serious or scary as I imagined in my mind. But it was a moment where I had to say, am I going to trust God with the outcome? And it really taught me that I have really moved beyond this fear of having to control everything, that I could live in peace, not knowing yet what the outcome was, and trust that I was doing everything I could to stay healthy and get healthy. And thank God I am, but I didn't know. you don't know the outcomes. And some people don't always get good news health-wise. And so we're just learning to live, trusting God day by day, that he is with us, that he will protect us, that he will bring us home someday, because we're all going home. And in the meantime, I want to live my best life for him. And I don't want to live afraid of what other people think or what other people might do. I'm going to live for him. And I hope you do too. That's my takeaway from all this learning that I've been doing. But I want to get to your questions. Yeah, I sense God working in my heart as you speak, Marlene. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So let me get to some of your questions so that I can answer them before we go. Hold on. Let me get to that page. All right. Here's one. I have a fear of being accepted. I think there's a reason between accepted and acceptance. What's the difference? I'm not sure what you're thinking. Acceptance, accepted. I'm not sure I really understand the question, honestly. So I'll just answer it as I would think about it. The truth is, not everybody's going to accept us. Not everybody accepted Jesus. Not everybody accepts Jesus as their savior. Not everybody accepts God as real. So to define your self-worth on the basis of whether someone does or doesn't accept you is dangerous, foolish, because probably people don't like me. People don't accept what I have to say to women who are in destructive marriages. They argue with me all the time. All right. I don't let that stop me. It could have stopped me. It almost stopped me earlier in my career. Okay. And God had to teach me, hey, I'm going to call you to some hard waters and you've got to learn to not fear the man, right? Fear of man is a snare, the Bible tells us. And I was fearing that they would wreck my professional life and say bad things about me, and they have. But it hasn't stopped me, and it hasn't stopped God from doing what God called me to do. And so if you need, with a big old capital NEED, someone to accept you in order for you to accept yourself, that's dangerous ground, lady. That's dangerous ground, because some people aren't going to accept you. They're not going to like you. They're not going to want you. They're not going to love you, or they're going to pretend they do, but they're only going to accept you conditionally if you do what I want. I want to read a quote to you that I read in Italy that just took my breath away. And it's for all of you, but especially for this person. People, women, but all people mothered. I love that verb, mothered. People mothered beyond fear, which is what we want to do for you in this Insecurity Coaching Week. People who are mothered beyond fear are not so easily managed or administered or so easily intimidated. Don't you love that? People who are mothered beyond fear are not so easily managed. We're in a culture right now that is very scary. Don't be so easily managed. Christian women have been managed under the guise of biblical submission in unhealthy, intimidating ways. Biblical submission is a wonderful discipline, and I highly think it's important, but it's been misused, and it's been used inappropriately in marriage and other places, especially for women. But did you know that God calls all Christians to submit to authority, to one another, and to God, not just women? And so let me read the quote again. People mothered beyond fear are not so easily managed or administered like objects to use, or so easily intimidated. You see, fear is intimidation. That I will hurt you or harm you if you don't do what I want. And if we're in relationships, in churches, with other people, in marriages, where that's the crux of the relationship, it's not only unhealthy, it's sinful, including in marriage. So let me read the quote again. People mothered beyond fear, come to our Moving Beyond Insecurity Week. We want to mother you beyond fear so that you're not so easily managed or administered or so easily intimidated by others, but also by your own mind. I can't do it. I'm afraid I'll make a mistake. What's wrong with me? We intimidate ourselves. We intimidate our own growth by our own self-talk sometimes. And we're going to teach you to recognize that. Where do you see it? How do you notice it? And to move beyond it. All right. So I hope that answered your question about acceptance. How do you get over your fear of public speaking? So I'll tell you the story. So I used to have a terrible fear of public speaking. And so I would have my bowels would just be, and I would be in the bathroom before I had to speak. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to make it on stage. I'm going to have to say, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom, which is terribly humiliating. I would never have to want to do that. So when God called me to begin to speak to larger audiences, I was terrified, not of making a mistake so much, but my body was like, my knees would shake, my stomach would grumble. I'd be having to go to the bathroom. And sometimes I would cry. And so one of the things that got me over it was I was speaking at my own church for a Christmas program. And I was a volunteer at the CareNet Pregnancy Center at the time. And this was years and years ago. And I had homed a homeless woman who was pregnant, and she stayed in my home for 6 months while she had her baby. And because that's what we do when we help people, we actually put our feet to the ground and help people. We don't just say it, we help people, we help people. And so she lived with us for 6 months while she got on her feet and had her baby and all those kind of things. So I was talking to my church about, how about we all open up our homes? This is Christmas, and Jesus had no room in the inn and all of that. It was a great talk, except for I couldn't actually deliver it because I started sobbing in the middle of the talk. I mean, not just like tears dropping down my eyes, but like boo-hooing sobbing, like, like that kind of sobbing. And I couldn't even finish my talk. And so afterwards, I was arguing with God, like, see, God, I'm disqualified from public speaking. I just can't do it. I can't. My body won't let me do it. And he said, however you speak, I will use it. I'm calling you to speak. And so I just had to give up my pride. It was pride that I didn't want to show up in my human self of crying or saying, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. Thank God I've never had to do that. I still usually go to the bathroom beforehand, but I don't have to do it during the talk. But I have learned that God uses our weaknesses, like Paul says, not that I'm adequate for these things. I'm not adequate. My adequacy comes from him. And so if it's about us and we've got to shine our star, probably that is part of what keeps us from speaking, because we're afraid we're not going to do it perfect and we're not going to do it right. And, so here I am sitting and my bells are ringing, and I don't turn off all the things because I don't exactly know how to do that while I'm on my computer. And it's okay. I feel free to be me and show up live me. And whether you like me or don't like me isn't going to ruin my life. And so I think that's part of the mental change that has to happen if you're going to be a public speaker. The other thing is that you do need to learn how to speak well, and you need to do your homework so that you are delivering a message that is effective and timely. And so get some coaching or get some help on public speaking. But there's an internal work of your pride and shame and fear that you have to do. And then there's some external work of just practicing public speaking. And so just FYI, for those of you who've actually heard me speak publicly, if you've ever heard me speak, some of you may have gotten Julie Royce's latest podcast where I spoke at her Restore conference. So when I speak publicly, I prepare, and it probably takes me about 40 hours to prepare one hour talk. And I practice it and I commit it to memory. And that takes probably another 10 to 20 hours. So I get put in a lot of prep time in order to speak well. And then I have to let the outcome go. I do my best at my end. And then if I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of it, I would have to say so. So that's how you get over your fear of public speaking, is you trust God, you do your work to prepare, to be a servant worthy of the call, and do your homework. And then you have to let go of the results. You do your best. Let me see. I think we only got 2 questions here. Anybody else have any other questions before we go? Tamara, our weaknesses for sure. This is what I'm learning. And you know what? I think that people who come as a public speaker, or even in Facebook Live or Instagram, when they're too slick and too polished and too perfect, it's we don't really trust them all that well, because they're not relatable. And so if you're going to speak to people, speak from your heart. Speak from your heart, not, so even in my preparations, I'm always sensing, I need to say something else, or I'm going in a different direction, that my heart is heavy on this subject and I'm going to linger longer here, but I'm prepared, but I'm not stuck to that script if God takes me somewhere else. And so I think this is really important. If you are going to be feeling like I've got to do it perfect and I've got to show up perfectly, that's insecurity. Even writing my books, ladies, I'm just going to be honest with you. Writing my books, it was hard work because I wasn't a trained writer. I didn't get A's in English going to school, any of that. I didn't go for my dissertation because I lived in fear. But when I would sit and write my books, this is what I would do. I would say, okay, God, I will give you my time because I don't know how to write. I'm going to sit for 2 hours, or I'm going to go for a weekend retreat. I'm going to sit for 4 hours and write. And I don't know how to do this. And so I would just write mostly garbage. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say next. And I'm just typing and typing and typing and typing and typing and typing. And then I would read it back and I'd say, this one line makes sense. I'd write for hours and take one sentence. Or I'd write for hours and then I'd take a walk and then God would tell me what to say and I'd speak it into my phone and then I'd come back and write it. So this is a process. It's not like you're going to do it perfect and you're going to get it all right the first time. And that's why moving beyond fear, you are going to fail. And when I wrote my books, guess what? I had editors and there was a lot of red ink on my writing. And if I can't write, I'm stupid. I didn't say that. I might have said that years earlier when I lived in fear, but I learned fear is not going to get the best of me. I feel fear, but fear doesn't have me. Let me give you one more tool, if that's okay with you, since we don't have any other questions. All right. We are misled in our psychologized culture to think that our feeling self is our most authentic self. Our feelings are very important, and it's really crucial that you know what you feel. But your feeling self is not your most authentic self. It's just a part of yourself. It's not all of yourself. Your thinking self is not all of yourself. You are not your mind. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You have feelings. I feel fear. I have thoughts. My thoughts are negative right now. Well, who's the person who's noticing that I have thoughts and I have feelings that aren't in alignment with what I want to be or who I want to be, right? That's your best self. And your best self, we in our organization we used to call it your big circle self until last year at our Insecurity Week, we named it your noble self. Your noble self, the best self that God designed you to be, is noticing that you have icky feelings. Okay, I notice that I have hatred in my heart toward my ex-husband. I don't have an ex-husband, but maybe you do. I notice that I have bitterness or fear of saying no to my mom when she wants me to come do this or give her money, and I can't. I don't have any money, but she wants me to, and I feel fear. I'm noticing that. Just because I have a feeling doesn't mean it has to control me. But how do I learn to notice my thoughts? Oh, I have stinking thinking right now. Or, oh, I have really negative feelings right now. What do I want to do with them? I notice I have them versus them just taking over my life. And so we're going to teach you more about this in the Moving Beyond Insecurity Week, but you are not your feelings. You have feelings. Notice them. Take care of them. But don't let them be the boss of you. Don't let them be the boss of you. If anger is the boss of you, you're going to make a mess of things. If fear is the boss of you, you're going to miss out on your best life. If resentment is the boss of you, you're going to get sick inside. If lust is the boss of you, you're going to make some bad choices. What's the boss of you? So I encourage you, if this resonates with you and you want more of this coaching to learn to find your noble self, to be your noble self. And not everybody's going to like your noble self, just like not everybody liked Jesus. But that's what God wants you to grow into, is your best self, your noble self. When he says, put off your old self with its corrupt thinking and feelings, and put on your new self, created to be noble in God's image. In Ephesians 4 and 5. Be imitators of God. Live a life of love. That's your noble self. Don't you want that? I definitely want that. So I challenge you. Sign up for our Moving Beyond Insecurity Week. And you do that by going to leslievernick.com/challenge. And you'll get all the information. It does cost you a bit because we want you to show up. And sometimes when you pay something, you are more invested to show up. It doesn't really pay the bills of the cost of putting this on for you, but it is something that you put some stake in the game as well. And we have learned that that helps you to take a little bit more ownership of your own learning. So we want you to be a part. We invite you. And I think we're good. We're done on 5 minutes early. So thanks so much. It was good to see you again. I'm back. I'm in Prescott right now because it's like 110 in Phoenix and it's pretty hot. It's pretty hot here too, but not 110. So it's good. And we're glad to be back from Italy and from visiting my dad. I stopped to see him for a little bit. He's 95 and still lives alone and does pretty well. Drove his car. We drove in his car. He wanted to drive. I won't do that again. So I had to have a boundary with my dad that if we were going to get in the car, I was going to drive because he drives very fast. And for 95 years old, it was a little too, he didn't drive reckless, but he just drove faster than I will drive. And I'm like, Dad, I have to drive the car. So even boundaries with your parents, you might have to learn to set. And it's okay for you to speak up for yourself. Good to see you. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.